guy, Heidel, and he basically has an itchy trigger finger and goes fucking crazy, and he's got the hots for the girls, so he goes nuts and shoots one of the other girls in the chest. That's there, one of the aides for the president's daughter. So it's like, now you got an injured hostage. She stays here, and you're like, oh my god. So so of course, but you had to have something happen so Snow can get involved. It was kind of a clever thing. It was ruthless. Of course, it shoots her off screen. You don't see anything because it's PG-13. And afterwards, because his brother fucked up, Alex has a moment of rage where he shoots some. I think he shoots one of the hostages or one of his prisoners, but it's off screen. You just hear a shot. That's not good. Like I said, it feels like you're watching a movie that's cut and edited for television. So then basically, now Snow he's in a spacesuit. This sort of reminds you of Moontrap in a way, because he's out there on the outside of the ship. So he gets inside the ship, and he has a moment where he confronts this one big motherfucker, and I guess Hawk gave him these explosives and all these cool little gadgets and stuff to help him out. And there's one thing that looks like a ring, looks like sort of like a bendy like cable or whatever. And he says it's like a bomb. It's like a charge. And he's getting his ass kicked by this guy. Then he pulls out the charge, puts it around his neck, and then this is one of the big, when PG-13, when there really should be like a disclaimer on the bottom of this sequence. It should say PG-13, parental guidance suggested. Yeah, prepare for fucking lame-ass, fucking half-assed, sequence here. The guy, he puts the bomb around his neck, and instead of his head blowing up in bloody, gory awesomeness like in The Running Man, or in Fortress, or in Deadlock, it blows up off screen. And you just see the guy, you hear the explosion, and you hear the guy go, ah! It's fucking lame. So then, Snow encounters some more prisoners and doesn't do this, shoots them, but there's no blood. Then, of course, you have there's this suspenseful little sequence here about basically where the girl, she's basically, that dumbass freaking Secret Service guy locked her into another room, and it was to protect her, but he didn't think straight. He didn't think about what's in this room, and it turns out this room was full of nitrogen. So now she's basically dying. They're both dying. The Secret Service guy, instead of staying there and protecting her, or sitting out this horrible, slow, painful death with her, he shoots himself in the head, which was very, once again, PG-13, so you can't see anything. Once again, it was shocking. I was like, wow, damn, he actually did that. But at the same time, it's kind of like, you're a fucking dumbass, okay? You're the one who fucking opened this can of worms in the first place, and now you're not going to take your medicine? You fucking asshole. I mean, you're like, well, it would be a horrible way to die, but, you're assigned by the president to protect this woman. And now you're going to bitch out and be like, I'm going to kill myself. I don't want to put myself through this. So, just, once again, dumb screenwriting. So then you get this actual really good sequence here after the guy, Secret Service guy, puts himself out of his misery. You have, sort of reminds you of Daylight. When Kit has to go through these spinning fans. Snow has to go through this sort of same sort of scenario. It looks like it at first, but then it turns out these spinning fans are actually zero gravity generators or whatever. So you have the sequence where Snow's there. He's floating in midair. And he's trying to get to this, to the other side, to this other platform, so he can get to the room where the girl is in, and save her. He's running out of time, and then basically, there's a villain, there's a bad guy who comes in, a prisoner, and they get in a fight, and it's not shaky cam like the earlier fights in the movie, where he first shows up. It's all there. It's camera straight. And it's really cool. It was a great suspenseful sequence with from zero gravity, grabbing, he's holding on to him, punching him in midair, and then, basically what he does is he manages to fucking get the upper hand and kick him in the face, and then what happens is one of the prisoners guys, he turns off the fans, so at that moment they're falling, and he manages to kick the guy in the face just before, the guy gets killed, gets spun up in the blades, but you don't see anything. Let's get him to PG-13. And then he manages to barely, grab onto, one of the ledges, metal ledges, leading into, one of the corridors. It definitely reminds you of Die Hard, like a futuristic Die Hard sequence. Like when he was in that shaft. It definitely reminds you of that, and it's really well done. He does a moment where then as soon as he thinks he's safe, the fans turn back on. So then he's brought back up, and he's all freaked out. He's like, I need to get back over to that platform, and get to that room to save the girl. And he does like a backflip. He does like a spin in midair to get there, and it's cool. And so good practical effects and good stunt. Maybe a little bit of CGI on the fans in the bottom, but I was like, yay, that was a good moment. That was a good crowd-pleasing moment. That was one of the best moments of the film. And so the suspense continues and builds up really well, where he gets into the room, and she's dead, basically, and Hawk, the guy's telling him over on his, headphones, telling him basically, you need to do this and this and this, you need to inject her, and you need to put these heart, basically start her heart back up. And then there's this unsettling moment where it's like, you got to take this needle and shove it into her eye, and the pupil of eye is training her brain to activate her brain again. You're like, holy shit. They actually show it going into her eye a little bit, as much as they can get, they can get away with for PG-13. And she comes back to life, and then first pissed off at him, and before she actually, he actually met her before when he first got into the ship, but she was a bitch and hit him in the face with the fire extinguisher. And then she's hitting him again, and he's like, hold on, lady, save your life, you want to hold it for a second here. And then there's this moment where they have a moment. He takes her to some medical place, in the ship, and treats her, and he's got this stuff that is supposed to numb the wound and stop the bleeding. He's injecting her leg, and she's bitching and whining and complaining at him and being like, and he's like, why don't you just shut up, and just injects her, like, ah. And then she keeps talking and talking and talking, and then it's just good dialogue here. It's a good example of how you should write a screenplay. And she's talking more, and he's like, do you want some of this in your mouth? It worked for 24 hours. And she shuts up and is like, yeah, I didn't think so. So, do you always talk this much? It was good. It was a good moment between the two. So then basically Snow comes up with this idea. He's not only supposed to get her out, but he also has this plan of his own to save his friend. His friend Mace, the one who got the package, he was also taken on board. And that's one of the reasons why he did the mission. Because at first he was like, fuck this shit, and they're all... Of course he didn't say fuck this shit because of P-13. Screw this shit. Screw this stuff. And then but Mace is on there. It's like, okay. So he finds his friend, but his friend is brain damaged. And it's really kind of sad. Not really kind of sad. It really is sad. And it's just total shift in tone for the film. First it was, it started this kind of fun, sci-fi sort of B-movie, and then this depressing, oh, your friend is brain dead and can't freaking put a sentence together. It's like, great. Wonderful. So now he still brings Mace along with him, and now he has this plan where he's got to hide the girl. She looks too much like a girl, so he cooks up this, dye. He found out stuff in the prison and puts it on her hair, and, basically cuts her hair, and she's her hair all short and black. She puts on a orange jumpsuit, and she goes in and undercover. But here's the problem. Here's shitty screenwriting here, or crappy acting. I don't know which. She's basically acting too much like a girl. She's got her head down with her hat on, just to hide her face, and she's got her arms crossed like a girl, and just looking nothing like a guy at all, and totally obvious. So that really didn't help that sequence that much. So then basically you have this stupid moment, which was kind of funny, where that sequence of the trailer was like, here's a gun and here's an apple, and he basically gives it to her and basically sends her on her own to find the escape pod. And she's confused, doesn't know where anything is, and she's like, oh, do I go right or left? And it's like, there is no right and left in space. It's port or starboard. And, you know, then eventually she doesn't know where she's going, so we first say, alright, I'll go with you. It's kind of like, what the hell? And then basically there's this most sequence where they walk into this room with Mace, in tow. And on the door it says, and of course the camera pans into this door to say, warning, radioactive. And you're like, holy shit, this place is radioactive. Do not enter this room without, protective suits. They go in the room with no protective suits at all, and also get followed by some convicts. And you're like, what the hell is this? And this is never touched upon. This whole sequence, after walking a room with radioactive on it in plain sight, there's never any. This sequence is never touched upon again. Was radioactive? Were they walking radiation? Must not have been, because they turned out okay in the end. So it must have been fucking. I don't know. Must have been really low levels of radiation, or fake, or some guy thought it would be a joke to put a radiation sign on the fucking door. I don't know. But that's another example of shitty screenwriting in this movie. So, that action sequence in itself was just kind of... It really wasn't even an action sequence. He's just running away from these convicts. One of them actually literally runs into and head first into a exposed bar and gets knocked out. And Mace isn't coordinated enough, and he ends up getting hit in the head too. And he's dragged around, and they get out of the room. But this is also the moment where there was a hole... In one of the holes, the hole got damaged because one of the convicts was trying to shoot at Snow, and so now the air is getting in, and now the doors are closed, and it's a tragic sequence where Snow's trying to save his friend and he can't, and his friend basically literally freezes in front of him, and it's pretty sad. And then you get to more sequences of the hostages, and they're in trouble. But then you get this stupid, fucking, god-awful, fucking aggravating as fucking holy hell sequence, which after all of this is building up and building up. Snow actually finds the pod and puts the girl in it, but she's the only one there's only one pod you find it, like, oh shit, and he sends her off into it, but she manages to get out of the pod and doesn't go, which shows kind of, some kind of balls on her part. And you have this, build up where they're going to try to find some other way to get off the ship. And there's this plan that, these guys are going to, they're going to blow up the ship, and then they're going to get off on these suits and parachute down below to the earth. And they're going to send these pilots to drop this bomb on the MS-1. You also get suspense where basically, since the dumbass fucking convict, I think it was they sent the warden out in space to show that they're serious. The convicts did, but he's the one that knew how to control the ship and was the only one who knew how to control it for some reason. So the ship's without a pilot, so it's basically floating into space and is getting ready to enter Earth's atmosphere. And if it enters the Earth's atmosphere, it's just going to destroy the eastern seaboard, basically. So you have that bit of suspense, and it's building up and building up. You have this moment where basically they're going to send this armada over there to shoot it, basically take out the convicts and blow the ship up, and set the bomb and everything. But the president's like, no, my daughter's on board. But then Peter Stormare's a dick, and then says I'm sorry. In the Constitution it says that if the president cannot operate under without basically without a clear head because of family involvement, I can take charge and take head of this operation. And he's like, no, you can't. You have to have the authorization of the vice president. He pulls up an iPad. He's like, I already have it. I'm like, you dick. So basically, he just set it up. He doesn't care. He's gonna kill everybody. Doesn't really give a fuck. Just wants to take down MS-1 and everybody on it. Even if the president's daughter Snow is on there, he doesn't give a fuck. So you basically have this fucking bullshit where you have this great lead up, like what I'm saying. It sounds like, it's building up to some big climax, and then fucking Alex, the leader, what happens is he's off doing something. His fucking twitchy brother, Heidel, goes fucking ape shit because the girl doesn't want to come back to him.